Hi, my name is Dan McGuire. I'm the Director of Percussion for Scienceville High School, as well as the President of the Tennessee chapter of the Percussive Arts Society. Today is part 2 of our video on blend and balance, specifically as it relates to the percussion ensemble. We're going to be hitting 3 different examples of transparency of sound. Specifically, the first being dealing with just keyboard instruments, the second dealing with just drums or percussion instruments, and the third example being drums and keyboard combined. Now, when we're talking about transparency of sound, this relates very closely to our idea of balance and blend, but it's the end result of what we're after when we're dealing with balance and blend. And the idea is that once I've got everything blended really well, I can hear every instrument without trying too hard. That is how we know that we have achieved a good blend, is by achieving that transparency of sound. Our first example is going to be transparency as it relates to keyboard instruments within the percussion family. For our musical example with this, we're going to be listening to Shades of Glass by Dustin Schulz, and this is towards the end of the piece. And what we're listening for, the melodic line will be primarily in the metallics, and then woods will add in about halfway through. For our next example, we're going to be talking about transparency as it relates to drums. For our musical example, we are going to, again, go back to Shades of Glass. And this is a little bit earlier in the piece than the clip we just saw. And there are 3 instruments for which we are listening. The first is a snare drum, which you're not going to be able to see the player. He's going to be almost directly behind the player that is on our next instrument, the bongos. And then the third player is going to be on a concert bass drum. So the idea here being that I can hear all 3 of those voices without trying too hard. Now, what you're going to hear about halfway through is the snare drum actually starts to underbalance, and we lose the snare drum voice. In the first half, it's a little under, but it's still present, so we're still getting that transparency of sound. And then towards the end, we get a little bit of the snare drum back. So on this example, we're going to hear how it kind of is set up correctly and they're executing it, and then the snare drum player falls off. So we're going to hear it going well and it going not so well. For our final example, we're going to be talking about transparency as it pertains to keyboard and drums or percussion. Our musical example is going to be Fractalia, and on this piece, what we're listening for is the dynamic relationship between the toms and the marimbas, and the idea being that those voices mesh really tightly together from a dynamic standpoint, so you can hear the keyboards while the toms are being played. Whenever we have any type of piece of music where you're dealing with keyboard and percussion or drums specifically, it's really important that the percussion instruments do not overwhelm the keyboards. As always, I hope this video has been helpful to you. Moving forward, the Board for Tennessee PAS has an earnest desire to provide instructional content that will help you in your classroom, specifically high school and middle school percussion. As you are trying to improve your percussion section, we understand that sometimes it's hard to get back there to them. And it's hard to devote time to your percussion section. And we want to provide instructional content that you can see and your students can see to help you improve while you are in the trenches every single day. If you have any ideas on something you would like to see us cover, please feel free to email me at danmcguireperk@gmail.com. Until then, in the next video, take care.